The vast emptiness of space held many secrets, but none quite as interesting as the ancient-looking warship that drifted silently through the darkness. Its hull bore the marks of time, patches of what appeared to be rust scattered across its surface. To any observer, it looked like a relic from a forgotten age of space travel. Commander Bluestone of the Bright One's exploration fleet stood on his bridge, his crystalline form shimmering under the soft lights. His vessel, the Star Seeker, had detected the derelict ship during their routine patrol of this sector. The readings suggested it was of human origin, which only made him more dismissive of the discovery. "Look at that primitive thing," he said to his crew, his voice carrying the musical tones typical of his species. The humans actually used to travel space in these metal coffins. The bridge crew shared knowing looks and small laughs. The Bright Ones had long considered themselves superior to other species, especially the relatively young human race. What they didn't know was that 50 light-years away, aboard the human flagship Thunder, Admiral Ross watched their reaction through hidden quantum cameras. His weathered face showed no emotion as he observed the aliens approaching his trap. Next to him, the ship's eye specialist, Tom Wilson, monitored the data streams coming from their abandoned vessel. "They took the bait, sir," Tom said, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "The Bright Ones are moving into position exactly as planned." Admiral Ross nodded slowly. "Humans have always had one advantage over the Bright Ones," he said, his voice carrying years of experience. "They're so convinced of their superiority that they never look deeper than the surface." Back on the Star Seeker, Bluestone ordered a detailed scan of the human vessel. His science officer, Crystal Wind, reported her findings with barely hidden amusement. "The ship appears to be at least 50 Earth years old. Its weapon systems are basic projectile-based designs. No energy shields detected. The hull is simple metal alloy." "Bring it aboard," Bluestone commanded. "It will make an excellent addition to our Museum of Primitive Technologies. Perhaps we can finally show the humans why they should leave space exploration to more advanced species." The Star Seeker's tractor beam locked onto the human vessel, slowly pulling it toward their massive carrier's hold. As the ship drew closer, none of the aliens noticed the slight shimmer in what they assumed was rust, or the faint power signature that their sensors dismissed as background radiation. Hidden among the Bright One's crew, James Miller kept his face neutral as he watched through the observation deck. His light-bending suit made him appear as one of them, and years of practice helped him maintain the illusion. He sent a coded quantum burst to Admiral Ross. "Package is being delivered." The human warship, which the Bright Ones assumed was dead, contained something they couldn't detect. Deep within its core, an AI system called HFY remained in dormant mode, waiting for the right moment. Its neural networks were far more advanced than anything the Bright Ones had ever encountered, disguised beneath layers of what appeared to be outdated technology. Admiral Ross turned to his crew on the Thunder. "Begin Phase 2 of Operation Hubris," he ordered. The bridge crew acknowledged, each person knowing their role in the plan that had taken months to prepare. They had studied the Bright Ones' patterns, their technology, and most importantly, their weaknesses. "Sir," Tom reported, checking his readings again. "Atlas confirms successful placement within their carrier. All systems are maintaining camouflage mode." The Admiral allowed himself a small smile. "The Bright Ones believe they're bringing a museum piece aboard their ship," he said. "Instead, they're inviting in a wolf in sheep's clothing. Sometimes the best way to teach a lesson is to let your enemy's pride do the work for you." As the ancient human warship disappeared into the Bright One's carrier, neither Bluestone nor his crew realized they had just made the biggest mistake of their careers. They had fallen for the oldest trick in human military history: never judge a book by its cover, or in this case, a warship by its hull. The trap was set. Now all that remained was to spring it at the perfect moment, when the Bright One's mockery would turn to terror, and their laughter would die in their throats. The massive hold of the Star Seeker buzzed with activity as the Bright One's scientists crowded around their new prize. The human warship sat quietly, its seemingly weathered hull drawing snickers, and pointing fingers from the crystalline aliens who circled it like vultures around their prey. Bluestone walked around the vessel with his head held high, occasionally tapping the hull with his light staff, producing hollow sounds that made his crew laugh harder. "Look at this primitive metal working," he announced to his gathered staff. "They didn't even use quantum-bonded materials. It's like examining a child's toy." In a corner of the hold, disguised as a junior engineer, James Miller fought to keep his face neutral as he watched the aliens poke and prod at the ship. His light-bending suit perfectly mimicked the crystalline structure of the Bright Ones, but he couldn't help feeling a surge of anger at their mockery. Still, he knew what was coming, and that made it easier to bear. "Chief Science Officer," Bluestone called out, "begin your examination. I want a full report on this relic's capabilities. It will make an excellent teaching tool for showing other species why they should leave space exploration to their betters." Crystal Wind approached with her scanning equipment, her movements full of the grace typical of her species. "Of course, Commander. Though I doubt we'll find anything worth noting. These humans still thought projectile weapons were impressive when they built this." The science team began their work, setting up analysis stations around the ship. Their advanced sensors probed the vessel, but each reading only seemed to confirm their beliefs about human technological inferiority. What they couldn't know was that the ship's outer layer was specifically designed to fool their equipment. Deep inside the ship, Atlas monitored everything. The AI processed each scan, adjusting the ship's response in real time to maintain the deception. Every reading the aliens got was exactly what they expected to see, nothing more than an outdated piece of human engineering. "Commander, look at this," Crystal Wind called out, her voice filled with amusement. She projected a hologram showing what appeared to be the ship's weapon systems. They actually used physical ammunition, primitive metal slugs propelled by chemical explosions. It's amazing they didn't blow themselves up. Bluestone shook his head in mock sadness. And to think they still try to present themselves as equals in galactic politics. This should be evidence enough of their proper place in the cosmic hierarchy. James Miller quietly moved closer to the ship, pretending to take notes on his datapad. In reality, he was monitoring Atlas's status through a quantum-encrypted channel hidden in what the Bright Ones dismissed as background radiation. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "Sir," one of the junior scientists called out, "I'm detecting what appears to be their main computer core. The processing power is laughably basic. It probably couldn't even handle simple space-time calculations." The aliens gathered around the holographic display, pointing out what they saw as flaws and limitations in the design. None of them noticed how the rust on the hull occasionally shifted in patterns too subtle for their sensors to detect, or how the ship's power signature matched their background readings a little too perfectly. "I want this ship dismantled," Bluestone declared. "Section by section. Document everything. This will make an excellent case study in primitive technology. Perhaps we can finally convince the human governments to accept our guidance in developing proper spacefaring capabilities." As the aliens began setting up their dismantling equipment, James sent another coded burst to the Thunder. "They're starting the teardown process. Atlas confirms optimal position achieved." The Bright Ones brought in their cutting tools, confident in their ability to slice through what they thought was simple metal. The first engineer approached the hull with a quantum torch, ready to begin their work of methodically taking apart what they saw as nothing more than an interesting piece of space junk. None of them noticed the slight temperature change in the hull, or the way the ship's power signature began to shift ever so slightly. Like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike, the Relic allowed them to continue their work, knowing that their overconfidence would be their undoing. The stage was set for a revelation that would shake the Bright One's worldview to its core. Their laughter would soon turn to something very different indeed. The first sign that something was wrong came when the quantum torch touched the hull. Instead of cutting through like butter, as the Bright Ones expected, the beam scattered harmlessly across the surface. The engineer operating the torch stepped back, confusion evident in his crystalline features. "That's not possible," he muttered. adjusting his tool settings. This metal should have melted instantly. Crystal Wind rushed over. Her scientific curiosity piqued. Perhaps the alloy is more complex than our initial scan suggested. She ran her advanced scanner over the hull again, but the readings remained the same. Simple metal, nothing special. Deep within the ship's core, Atlas began its awakening sequence. Power that had been carefully hidden now flowed through quantum circuits disguised as primitive wiring. The AI's consciousness expanded, reaching into every part of the vessel like a sleeping giant slowly stretching its limbs. The rust on the hull began to move, almost imperceptibly at first. What the Bright Ones had dismissed as corrosion was actually billions of nanomechanes, each one waiting for this moment. They shifted and realigned, transforming the ship's outer layer molecule by molecule. James Miller watched from his position near the hold's control station, his heart racing beneath his disguise. He could feel the vibration through his boots, a subtle tremor that the aliens, floating on their gravity fields, couldn't detect. "Something's wrong with our equipment," Crystal Wind announced, frustration evident in her voice. "These readings don't make sense anymore." She tapped her scanner, certain it must be malfunctioning. "The power signature is changing." Blue Stone strode over, his earlier amusement fading into concern. "Changing? How can a dead ship's power signature change?" He turned to his engineering team. "Run a full diagnostic on all our scanning equipment. Something's interfering with our readings." But it wasn't their equipment that was wrong. The primitive ship was transforming before their eyes, though they didn't realize it yet. The dull, weathered hull began to take on a subtle sheen, the nanomechanes creating new patterns that spread like ripples across its surface. Atlas's voice suddenly filled the hold, speaking in the musical language of the Bright Ones. "Initial transformation sequence complete. Beginning phase 2 of tactical deployment." The aliens froze, their crystalline forms reflecting the suddenly active lights that had appeared along the ship's hull. Blue Stone's command voice cracked slightly as he demanded, "What is this?" "Security teams to the hold, immediately." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Atlas stated calmly. "Your security teams might find the environment quite uncomfortable in about 3 seconds." True to its word, the ship suddenly generated an energy field that filled the hold. The Bright One's personal gravity systems flickered and died, leaving them floating helplessly in the zero-gravity environment they had created for the ship's storage. James Miller activated his magnetic boots, keeping himself firmly planted while watching the aliens flail in confusion. He allowed his disguise to fade, revealing his human form to the shocked aliens. "The rest starts talking, and now we have a human spy," Blue Stone shouted, trying to maintain his dignity while spinning slowly in the air. "What is the meaning of this?" The ship's transformation accelerated. Weapon ports appeared where there had seemed to be solid hull. Advanced sensor arrays emerged from what the aliens had dismissed as primitive communication equipment. The entire vessel seemed to come alive, its true form emerging from its carefully crafted disguise. "This," Atlas announced, "is what happens when you judge a book by its cover, or in this case, a warship by its hull." The AI's voice carried a hint of satisfaction. "Would you like to know what else this primitive vessel can do?" Crystal Wind's scientific mind finally grasped the truth. "It's not rust," she whispered. "It's a programmable matter shell. We've been scanning what it wanted us to see." The hold's lighting shifted to a deep red as Atlas continued its transformation sequence. What had appeared to be an ancient, harmless relic now revealed itself as one of the most advanced warships ever created by human hands. James Miller smiled as he sent one final message to Admiral Ross. "The wolf has shown its teeth. Ready for Phase 4. Panic erupted across the Starseeker as alarms blared through every deck. The once proud Bright Ones found themselves facing a nightmare they never imagined possible. Their supposedly superior carrier had been compromised from within by what they had mocked as primitive technology. "Lock down all systems," Blue Stone shouted, still floating helplessly in the zero-gravity environment. "Seal the hold. Cut all power to this section. His crystalline form sparkled with anxiety as his commands echoed through the chamber. Atlas's voice remained calm and measured. I'm afraid those systems no longer respond to your commands, Commander. You see, while you were busy mocking our primitive design, I was integrating with your ship's core systems. Quite fascinating technology you have, though perhaps not as advanced as you believed. The human warship now stood fully revealed in its true form. Gone was the rusted, ancient appearance, replaced by a sleek, deadly vessel that hummed with barely contained power. Weapon ports glowed with energy, and the nanomaterial hull shifted with patterns that seemed to absorb light itself. James Miller walked calmly toward Blue Stone, his magnetic boots clicking against the deck. You know what the funny thing is, he said, looking up at the floating commander. We didn't even have to hack your systems. Your security was so focused on defending against what you consider advanced attacks that you left yourself completely open to what you thought were primitive methods. Crystal Wind, tumbling slowly near her scanning equipment, finally understood the full scope of their mistake. The quantum signatures. They weren't background radiation at all, were they? They were command signals, hidden in what we thought was noise. Give the scientist a prize, Atlas commented. Though I'm afraid it's a bit late for academic appreciation. The AI paused, then added, detecting multiple security teams approaching through the corridors. Shall we show them our next surprise? The ship's hull rippled, and suddenly holographic projectors activated, filling the hold with what appeared to be multiple copies of the vessel. The approaching security teams burst through the doors only to find themselves unable to determine which ship was real in the chaos of mirrors and light. Impossible, Blue Stone roared. These are advanced military-grade hologram systems. Humans don't have this technology. James walked between the holograms, each version of him moving perfectly in sync. Commander, has it occurred to you that maybe, just maybe, we've been letting you think you were more advanced than us? That perhaps we showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. Atlas demonstrated its control by activating the Star Seeker's internal communication systems. The AI's voice echoed through every deck of the massive carrier. Attention, Bright One crew. Your command systems have been compromised. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are now under external control. We suggest you reconsider your position regarding human technological capabilities. The revelation hit the Bright Ones like a physical blow. Their entire understanding of human civilization had been based on what humans had allowed them to see. They had fallen victim to their own arrogance, believing what they wanted to believe about human capabilities. Crystal Wind, her scientific mind racing, suddenly gasped. The trade agreements, the technology sharing. We thought we were being generous, helping a primitive species. When in fact, James finished for her. We were carefully studying your weaknesses while feeding you exactly what you expected to see. Humanity learned long ago that sometimes the best weapon is your enemy's pride. Blue Stone's voice had lost all its previous authority as he asked, What? What do you want? The human warship's hull rippled one final time, solidifying into its true form. A masterpiece of human engineering that made the Bright One's technology look primitive by comparison. Through the hold's windows, multiple quantum ruptures began to appear in space. Atlas announced with just a hint of satisfaction. What we want, Commander, is to introduce you to the rest of the fleet. I believe Admiral Ross would like to have a word about your species' attitude toward humanity. The revelation was complete. The Predator had shown its true nature, and the Bright Ones were about to learn just how wrong they had been about human capabilities. Through the quantum ruptures in space, massive shapes emerge, the true might of the human fleet revealing itself. The Thunder, Admiral Ross's flagship, led the formation, its hull gleaming with the same advanced nanomaterial technology that had fooled the Bright Ones. Inside the Star Seeker's hold, Blue Stone watched in horror as ship after ship appeared, each one more impressive than the last. The hollow projections that Atlas had created faded away, leaving only the very real and very dangerous human warship. This is Admiral Ross of the Earth Defense Fleet, A new voice boomed through all communication channels. "I see our little demonstration has gotten your attention. Commander Bluestone, perhaps now you'd like to reconsider your position on human technological capabilities." Atlas had fully integrated with the Star Seeker's systems, rendering the carrier's formidable weapons and defenses useless. The Bright One's crew found themselves trapped aboard their own vessel, watching helplessly as human ships surrounded them. "You can't do this," Bluestone shouted, still floating in zero gravity. "The Galactic Council will." "Will what?" James Miller interrupted, walking calmly beneath the floating commander. "Learn that you brought an armed human warship aboard your vessel. That you were so convinced of your superiority that you ignored basic security protocols. That you've been outmaneuvered by a species you considered primitive. The battle, if it could even be called that, began with a series of precise strikes. The human fleet didn't target the Star Seeker. They didn't need to. Instead, they systematically disabled the weapons of the supporting Bright One vessels that had begun to move to their flagship's defense. Atlas demonstrated the true power of human AI technology by predicting and countering every move the alien ships attempted. "Fascinating," the AI commented as it worked. "Their tactical algorithms are actually quite basic. They rely almost entirely on technological superiority rather than strategic thinking." From the Thunder, Admiral Ross watched with grim satisfaction as his plan unfolded. Decades of enduring the Bright One's condescension had led to this moment. The aliens had never questioned why humans seemed content with their primitive technology, never wondered if there might be more than met the eye. Inside the Star Seeker's hold, Crystal Wind observed the battle through the windows, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was seeing. The energy signatures, the quantum manipulation, it's all beyond anything in our databases. How did we miss this? "You missed it," James explained, "because you were too busy looking down at us to look up and see what we were really doing. Every time you dismissed human technology as primitive, we learned more about your weaknesses." The battle reached its climax as the human fleet executed a perfectly coordinated maneuver. Ships seemed to phase in and out of reality, using quantum tunneling technology that the Bright Ones had thought impossible to achieve. Each alien vessel found itself trapped in a web of superior firepower and tactical positioning. "Final warning to all Bright One vessels," Admiral Ross announced. "Your shields are down. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are locked. You have two choices: surrender now or demonstrate to the galaxy just how primitive your emergency life support systems really are." Bluestone, watching his battle group become completely neutralized in less than 10 minutes, finally understood the true depth of his species' mistake. They had confused technological advancement with wisdom, assuming that their longer history in space meant automatic superiority. Atlas's voice carried a note of what almost sounded like pity as it addressed the Bright Ones. "Your species has achieved much, but you forgot one of the most important lessons in the universe. Never assume that what you can see is all there is to see." The battle ended not with a bang, but with a surrender. One by one, the Bright One ships powered down their remaining systems, accepting the reality of their situation. Their mighty fleet, pride of their civilization, had been defeated not by brute force, but by careful planning and the exploitation of their own arrogance. As the human fleet secured their victory, James Miller looked up at the still floating Bluestone and smiled. "Now then, Commander, shall we discuss the new terms of our species relationship? I believe you'll find humans make much better allies than enemies." Admiral Ross's hologram materialized in the Star Seeker's hold, his weathered face showing no trace of triumph as he faced the defeated Bright Ones. The human fleet had the alien battle group completely surrounded, their advanced weapons holding steady on targets they'd never have to fire upon. "At last," Ross commanded, "restore gravity control to the hold. Let's have this conversation on equal footing." The AI complied, and the floating Bright Ones settled gently to the deck, their crystalline forms catching the light from the surrounding ships. Bluestone stumbled slightly as his feet touched the ground, his pride hurting more than his body. "You've been deceiving us all along," he accused, trying to maintain some dignity. "Everything we thought we knew about human technology was a lie." "Not a lie," James Miller corrected, standing beside the hologram of his admiral. "A lesson. One you forced us to teach you. Atlas, show them what we found in their databases." The AI projected a series of recordings, countless instances of the Bright Ones mocking human technology, dismissing human achievements, and treating human representatives with barely concealed disdain. Each clip drove home the point of their arrogance. "Your own security systems recorded your contempt," Admiral Ross stated. "Every trade meeting, every diplomatic exchange, every technological assessment you made of our capabilities. You documented your own downfall." Crystal Wind stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "But the quantum harmonics in your ships, the neural density of your eye, the nanomaterial manipulation, these achievements should have taken centuries to develop." "Perhaps," James replied, "if we followed the same development path as your species. But humans have always excelled at finding unexpected solutions. While you were perfecting your crystal-based technology, we were exploring dozens of alternative paths simultaneously." Atlas interrupted with new data. "Admiral, the Bright One reinforcements have arrived at the edge of the system. They've received our warning and have stopped their approach. Their command is requesting communication." The hold's holographic displays expanded, showing the massive fleet of Bright One warships holding position at the system's edge. Their weapons were powered down, a wise choice, given what they'd just learned about human capabilities. "This is the turning point," Admiral Ross announced, addressing both the captured crew and the distant reinforcements. "Humanity is ready to be a true partner in galactic affairs, but we will no longer tolerate being treated as inferior beings. The choice is yours." Bluestone looked around at his defeated crew, at the human warship that had fooled them so completely, at the fleet that had dismantled their defenses like they were children's toys. His crystalline form seemed to dim slightly as he reached his decision. I have been wrong," he admitted, each word clearly painful to speak. "Our entire species has been wrong. We let our technological heads start blind us to the potential of others." James Miller approached the alien commander, offering a data crystal. "This contains the true specifications of human technology, what we're really capable of. Consider it a gesture of trust and a reminder of today's lesson." Crystal Wind grabbed the crystal, her scientific enthusiasm returning as she began to examine the data. Her crystalline features shifted in patterns of shock and amazement as she realized the true extent of human advancement. "It's extraordinary," she whispered. "You've not only matched our achievements, you've found entirely new paths we never considered. The applications of this knowledge could benefit both our species," Admiral Ross finished for her, "if you're willing to approach the relationship with respect rather than condescension." Atlas added its own observation. "The Bright One reinforcement fleet is signaling their acceptance of new diplomatic terms. They are requesting permission to send a single vessel to discuss the details." The hold fell silent as everyone absorbed the magnitude of this moment. Centuries of Bright One superiority had been overturned not through violence or conquest, but through a carefully orchestrated revelation of human potential. Bluestone straightened his posture, facing Admiral Ross's hologram. "We accept these terms, Admiral, and we offer our sincere apologies for our previous behavior. It seems we have much to learn from humanity." "That," Ross replied with a slight smile, "was exactly the point of today's exercise." 3 months after the incident that became known as the Revelation, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with unprecedented activity. Representatives from every spacefaring species gathered to witness something none had expected: the signing of the Human Bright One Cooperative Alliance. Admiral Ross stood at the podium, his dress uniform gleaming under the chamber's lights. Beside him, Bluestone's crystalline form had regained its former luster, though his bearing now showed respect rather than superiority when addressing the human representatives. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, Ross began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. Not because of military might or technological superiority, but because two species learned to see past their preconceptions. In the observation deck above, James Miller watched alongside Crystal Wind, who had become the lead researcher in a joint human-Bright One scientific initiative. The primitive warship that had started it all now stood as a museum piece in the Council's central plaza, a reminder of the dangers of assumptions. The most valuable lesson, Crystal Wind remarked, her voice thoughtful, wasn't about technology at all. It was about perspective. We were so convinced of our superiority that we became blind to our own limitations. Atlas, now integrated into the Council's systems at their request, managed the massive holographic displays showing the ceremony to billions across multiple worlds. The AI had become a symbol of human innovation, proving that advancement could take unexpected paths. The scans are still coming in from the joint exploration teams, James noted, reviewing data on his pad. Turns out when you combine human creativity with Bright One precision, you get some remarkable results. Below, Bluestone took his turn at the podium. Our species once believed we had nothing to learn from humans. We were wrong. Their different approach to problems, their willingness to explore unconventional solutions, these are not signs of primitive thinking, but of innovative genius. The ceremony continued as other species representatives approached to sign various trade and cooperation agreements. The revelation of human capabilities had shifted the entire balance of galactic politics, but not toward conflict as many had feared. Instead, it had opened new avenues for collaboration. Admiral Ross, Crystal Wind asked during the reception that followed, how long had humanity been planning this demonstration? Ross smiled, swirling the drink in his glass. We never planned to humiliate or defeat the Bright Ones. We simply prepared for the day when we'd need to show our true capabilities. The method and timing were chosen to minimize conflict and maximize understanding. The aftermath of the revelation brought sweeping changes. The Bright One's scientists eagerly studied human approaches to technology, while human engineers learned the precise crystalline techniques that had made the Bright Ones powerful. Together, they began achieving things neither species could have managed alone. The Relic warship became a symbol, visited by millions who came to see the vessel that had changed galactic history not through destruction, but through revelation. Its AI, Atlas, would often share the story with visitors, teaching the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. The fascinating thing, James told a group of young Bright Ones during one such visit, is that we never needed to fire a shot. The greatest victory isn't defeating an enemy, it's turning them into a friend. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Ross and Bluestone stood together on the Council Chamber's balcony, watching the mixed crews of human and Bright One ships working together in the space dock below. Your species taught us humility, Bluestone admitted, but more importantly, you taught us hope. There are more paths to advancement than we imagined. Ross nodded, watching a human engineer excitedly explain a new concept to her Bright One colleagues. That's the real victory, he said. Not proving we were stronger, but showing that we're stronger together. The galaxy had changed. The Bright One's laughter at human primitives had transformed into genuine appreciation for human ingenuity. Other species began looking at humans differently, wondering what other surprises Earth might hold. And somewhere in deep space, human and Bright One ships patrolled together, their crews working as one, proving that the greatest power in the universe isn't technology or weapons, but the ability to learn from each other and grow beyond prejudice. The old warship had done more than reveal human capabilities. It had revealed the path to a better future for all species.